Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. We are very excited to host this next panel titled Strengthening Business and Nonprofit PK-16 Education Partnerships in a Pandemic Economy, where the focus of the conversation will be on how partnerships in the community are providing important resources for PK-16 education and how we can expand these partnerships moving forward. My name is Frederick No. I'm an assistant professor in the higher education program at UNLV. UNLV offers a master's in education and a PhD in higher education focused on leadership for higher education policy, student affairs, and intercollegiate athletics. I was formerly a high school math teacher myself, and now I do research on college access and success for marginalized and racially minoritized students with a focus on community colleges. I'd also like to introduce my co-discussant, Dr. Patrice Leverett.
Hi, it's good to see you all. I am Patrice Leverett, an assistant professor in the school psych, a former elementary teacher and school psychologist. My work at UNLV includes research on reducing implicit bias in school spaces and its impact on school in collaboration with districts such as CCSD. Additionally, I explore the impact of school and community partnerships on mental health outcomes for students. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation today about partnerships and collaboration and how valuable that is for schools. So today we're going to start with introduction of our panelists. Then we'll have some opening remarks from Superintendent Yara. We'll have some prepared questions to ask our panelists, but we also, so please feel free to put questions in the Q&A box, and then we will incorporate those throughout the course of the discussion today.
Thank you. Our first panelist is Dr. Nikki Bates, Director of Educational Media Services for Vegas PBS. In her role, Dr. Bates provides supervision, marketing, and innovative leadership for the station's children's educational television outreach, plus unique services that have been developed to assist Nevada's public, private, charter, and homeschools, such as media library for families with special needs, early learning parent engagement workshops, teacher training and online classroom materials, and K through 12 programs, initiatives, and more. Dr. Bates began her career with the Clark County School District in 1993 and has taught in various settings throughout the continuum of education. Before joining Vegas PBS, Dr. Bates had served as a teacher, assistant principal, and coordinator of instructional programs, also as Director of Academic Intervention and Professional Development, and Director for the Office of the Deputy Superintendent. In addition, Dr. Bates has extensive private sector experience in the educational publishing industry, specializing in intervention-based instructional materials.
We would also like to thank Dr. Jesus Jar for joining us today, who serves as the Superintendent of Clark County School District since June of 2018. CCSD serves approximately 360 schools and 320,000 students with 42 employees. Dr. Yara has been serving public school students for over 20 years, and later will offer some introductory comments about the state of CCSD in regards to community partnerships.
Welcome also to Cody Sims, Field Marketing Director for Cox Business Las Vegas and Omaha, who offers over 20 years of business experience in product development, product management, and marketing. Cody has a talent for guiding successful outcomes for internal and external partners through thoughtful and innovative solutions. His experience covers strategic business development, market analytics, market share capture plans, product evangelism, and operational excellence. In collaboration with the Nevada Governor's Pandemic Response Team, the Elaine Wynn Foundation, Community in Schools, and Clark County School District, Cody helped ensure 99% of all CCSD students and families had access to high-speed broadband internet access for the 2020-2021 school year. Welcome.
And then we would like to welcome Kenita Lewis, who's the Director of Diversity College Programs and Workforce Development at MGM Resorts International. In this role, Kenita is responsible for setting the strategic direction to attract and recruit diverse and graduate talent that will continue to drive innovation for an international entertainment organization. By building external national partnerships, increasing community and recruiting processes, Canada works to expand the MGM Resort's international brand in diverse and university settings. Thank you for joining. We'll get started. Today, we're going to start with Dr. Yara, who will provide a description of the importance of business and nonprofit partnerships with education. Some updates on CSD has partnered before and during this pandemic. Then we'll move into a panel discussion based on some pre-selected questions as mentioned, and again, any questions we get from the audience.
Thank you for having me part of this panel, the distinguished guests here that are with me. Appreciate the opportunity to share some of the great work. And as you mentioned, here at Clark County School District, it is really important that we have the partnership of the business community and to really improve the outcomes, not only for our children, to make sure that our kids are graduating college and career ready. So I'll go to the next presentation here. So basically, we have been focused, and since I've been here, on business and community partnerships with the chambers, all the chambers, not only the Vegas chamber, the urban chamber, the Latin chamber, the Asian chamber is really a key metric for us, and then also partnering with the workforce connections. This really entails the work that we're trying to do to make sure that our kids are graduating for the jobs not only that exist today, but within the next 5 to 10 years. Well, how do we look at what our kids need? So, I'll share a little bit of some of the work that we have been focused on since my arrival, and opportunities and experiences, and some of the work that we're looking at as we have transitioned into our future here. So now, we all know that, which is a statistics that I'm not proud of, but 81% of the dropouts say relevant real-world learning opportunities will have kept them in school. What does school look like? And I think right now we're at a pivotal point, caused by this virus. Is what do we need to do? How do we redesign our school district here to see that we are meeting the needs of every single student here in Clark County? So the work that we are doing as we move forward, and the work for us started when the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance started really created a partnership, LVGEA, the Metro Chamber, the Vegas Chamber now, and Workforce Connection partnered up and released the Workforce Connections. They released their work product, called it Development of 2.0. So one of the things that we started is really, how do we then embed our school counselor role? How do our counselors help our kids understand that college is not the only way? We all know very, very clear that you can be a very successful citizen, especially in this community, without a college diploma. You don't need to go, but you can. I think part of the thinking that we need to do is, which is my clear focus has been, is there's got to be pivotal. Graduate from college, high school, and go into a high skill paying job, but then also you can decide when and you will decide if you want to go to college, how do you transition back and forth? And I think that is very important. Our kids need to be ready, not only to have a high ACT score, a high GPA, but then also get right into the workforce. So the jobs right now, too many jobs exist that are being unfilled at this point because of a lack of prepared workforce. So that's been one of the things that we have been focused on, implementing protocols, aggregating our data. How do we start tracking our children? Professional learning, professional development, and really realigning our curriculum for our students. Then you get into some of the work, and this is a little bit, we're really excited as we're moving forward into a discussion around what does it look like? And this is some of the things that have transpired for us. We are in the midst right now of preparing a workforce for a new school around one of our schools, an empty lot, and really creating a workforce development partnership with Workforce Connection. They're going to put in a one-stop career center office We're going to have learning labs. There's going to be a workforce ready school. So kids will be able to walk out and right into the workforce. One of the future programs that we're including in there is a construction wiring, welding, automation, and business management. Our timeline is that it'll start building in sometime in the spring for a fall opening of 2023. Really, really, really excited around this opportunity. And as you know, within our school system, we also very successful magnet program, world nationally recognized. So we're going to continue to expand. Right now, we are looking at a career technical academy in the North Las Vegas area. Again, part of a timeline of fall 2023. And we're looking at a proposed programs: design, drafting, business administration, computer science, cybersecurity, construction technology, energy technology, health and humans, social services, teaching and training, automotive diesel. Looking at who's partnering with us, our current partnerships, obviously the City of North Las Vegas, Workforce Connection, LBGEA, Sephora, US Foods, Las Vegas Metro Chamber, Local 88, which is the sheet metal union, currently strong partners within the school. And we're also looking at expanding to a CTA, Career Technical Academy as well. This one is a little bit further along, actually a little bit delayed, fall of 2024. Very similar model. However, the programs are a little different: automation technology, biotechnical, computer science and cybersecurity, sports medicine. Obviously, when you had the home of the Raiders and the Golden Knights, we're looking at sports medicine, teaching and training, mechanical engineering, food science and manufacturing, business management. Our current partnerships and our partners are City of Henderson, Workforce Connection, LBGEA, Haas, US Food, Las Vegas Chamber, Google, and Local 88. So really, really excited, and really, how do we, pivot instead of us doing the same old, is partnering with the community needs. How do we shift our system? Partnership initiatives that we have and in development are internships for our kids. Will allow our students to engage in paid internships provided that will be provided by Workforce Connection, professional areas in construction, transportation, and facility management. The Future Ready LBGEA and CCSD was established in 2015. Focus on connectivity of business, industry, and schools, creates opportunities and experiences for our students in the program they study. If you recall, every spring we have what we call college signing days, right? Where we have always celebrate our athletes when they sign off and go to college. So not last year, the prior year, we had a signing day where our children, as they were finishing their high school senior year, they got construction jobs. They went right into the workforce, and really excited about this opportunity and the partnership that we had here. So, again, shifting our system and moving us into preparing our students that were college and career ready has been a big staple of my administration, with a great team that I have in this last 2 years. So thank you, and then I'll look ready. Well, wait for any questions when the panel opens it up to the audience.
Thank you very much. So we have about 25 minutes to hear from our panelists, and we've prepared a set of questions. So the first one is, and I'm going to ask probably Dr. Nikki Bates to go first. How have your organization, so MGM, PBS, and Cox, historically and traditionally provided support for education to the community?
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Dr. No, for this opportunity to bring Vegas PBS into this conversation and highlight us a little bit more. Certainly appreciate that. Vegas PBS has been part of this community, Dr. No, since 1968. Not just providing fabulous educational programming, but outreach services that extend the learning and the learning goals of those programs that we know over 70% of our kids are watching. 70% of households with kids ages 3 through 11 are watching Channel 10. So what better way to engage students And talking about workforce development, we not only, as a TV station, provide awareness, but those direct educational outreach services, work-based education, we have a program called American Graduate Getting to Work, which does just what Dr. Jara talked about. And that is providing choices. But first, our students need to be aware of what those choices are. So being work ready as well as college ready is so incredibly important. On our website, we partner with over 56 businesses that are all listed. We partner with GoEd, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, to ensure the information that we are providing to our students puts them right into those pathways for those high needs jobs that we know within the next 5 years, there will be a dearth in our state. We have got to ensure that our children have a way maybe to college, and sometimes that pathway to college is through work skills. I was 18 and on my own. I learned shorthand and typing in high school. That provided me my opportunity to go to college. Work was my way through college. And I think that is the reality, not just back then, which is a very long time ago, but for our students graduating today. We all know that that pathway and ensuring that our students are both work ready as well as college ready is incredibly important. And through working with nonprofits, agencies such as Vegas PBS that receive grants, we are able to then provide those direct services to the same constituents that our school districts serve. There are many other outreach programs that Vegas PBS provides, direct outreach into the community that again is so far beyond the broadcast. Television is incredibly important because for our kids who don't have internet service, that's actually a lifeline for them. Channel PBS is free across the nation. Everyone can access that through our public service announcements, through multiple means. We are able to reach the community with over 2 million participants in some of our educational outreach programs over the last 20 years. So as a staple here in our community and as a nonprofit partner with the school district, we are absolutely able to extend and synergistically extend that outreach into our educational community.
Thank you. Next on my screen, Kenita Lewis, do you have anything to add about how your organization has traditionally provided support for education?
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me today. What I failed to mention too is just the extensive partnership that in the bio when you introduced me that MGM Resorts has with UNLV. It's been fantastic, and we'll talk a little bit later in the discussion about some of the things that we've done in the pandemic around education. But for right now, MGM Resorts is very focused on what matters. Investing in our community is one of our 4 pillars of social impact and sustainability. And a part of that is also workforce development, which I have been tasked with over the past 6 months as well for our employees, our families, and also our overall communities. We have specific goals that are set for 2025, which include education and workforce development. So part of that is expanding our nonprofit and workforce development educational programs from 25% to 40%. And then we're also looking at increasing and awarding our programs and post-secondary scholarships to children of MGM employees as well. As you may or may not know, as being a part of UNLV, we're also a part of the College Opportunity Program, which for those who are unfamiliar, I think most people on this panel are very familiar, is the partnership with INSHE and UNLV. So we launched that in 2019, and we had over 200 people that took advantage of that, MGM employees that took advantage of that, and implying free resources or free educational resources for them to continue their careers and expand their education. So 2019, as I said, was the first year of the groundbreaking partnership. So we continue to look at ways through traditional tuition reimbursement programs, also additional partnerships within a community that I will talk about for us to be able to bridge the gap of education and upskilling and reskilling for our current employees.
Thank you. Cody?
Well, hello, Dr. No. Thanks everyone for having me here today. And as I was listening to both Nikki and Kanita, I was just thinking, you know, it's really fantastic to see the partnerships that we have in this community. When I moved here about 10 years ago, we had a really large piano that was a family heirloom. It was a cast iron frame that was very, very heavy. And the only way we could move it was for everybody to gather around the piano, plant their feet and lift and take little baby steps as we go. And it just made me think of, you know, this community when I came here. It's one of those big little towns where the small town feel of everybody leans in, everybody works together. And I love seeing the partnerships that we have here. From a Cox perspective, we have been working really hard to help in the education space for many years. About 12 years ago, we introduced a program called Connect to Compete, which is an internet access program for low-income families. And it allows them to connect for only $10 a month with broadband internet access. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in addition to that, we have Cox Charities, Cox Volunteers, lots of partnerships across the valley that I'm not going to go into because we've got other things to talk about. But I just want to say, I think that Las Vegas in particular, in the way that the education community and the commercial community and PBS and nonprofits, we really do all come together to make a difference. And it's just fantastic to see.
So I think Kanita touched on this a little bit. There has been some changes that we've had to make due to COVID. Some pretty significant changes to try to support communities and schools specifically. And so I'm wondering, what are some changes, some shifts that your organization had to do in order to better meet the needs of our community, our students? Why don't we'll start back at the top again, if that's okay, with Dr. Bates.
Hi, sure, absolutely. I will tell you that I'll talk about our Ready to Learn education program, our early childhood education, family engagement workshops. It's been a part of Vegas PBS for 20 years. We've been providing that service in the community to our Title I schools, to our Zoom schools, to multiple partners, United Way organizations, boys and girls clubs over the summertime. It is a staple of what we do at Vegas PBS, and through that program, we've managed to serve over 2 million participants through the years. They are engaging lessons for our parents that used to be in person. Total, absolutely fun engagement. I'll tell you, we had teachers, parents screaming to make sure that those services continued in our community. And we've been able to pivot and provide those same services in a virtual environment. And I have to tell you, the nuggets that we have learned from those smiling faces is continuing. What we see happening now, and we're still providing books as well, literacy activities, and the focus of Ready to Learn is hands-on activities, sparking curiosity for learning in both parents and their children. When we were face-to-face, it would be sometimes just mom and child coming to our workshops. Now we're servicing the entire family. We're seeing them sitting on their couches in their living rooms. We are serving them as they sit at their kitchen tables. And brother now, who's 10 or 12 years old, is participating with the 5 or 6-year-old child and saying, hey, go run in the kitchen and grab the spatula and let's do this activity during this family engagement workshop. And they're running in and out of rooms. And what we're seeing happen is really that engaging learning and the extension of the learning goals through the programming is still continuing, even in a virtual environment. But that's the online portion. But remember, we're also the old-fashioned airwaves, right? The old-fashioned Channel 10. Vegas PBS was able to create programming, to change programming when our school system shut down in March. We actually created programming and changed our program schedule from the hours of 2 to 6 p.m. to meet the needs of our kids. We created lesson plans. We created activities for parents to be able to do right along with their children during this time. We also created a program called STEAM Camp around STEM, which is now available on our website, to ensure that learning is continuing right in living rooms. So being able to pivot so quickly, and people say, Nikki, how is this affecting you and your department at Vegas PBS? I will tell you, we haven't taken a breath. We have not breathed since the shutdown of schools, because our entire focus is ensuring continuity of learning at home, just as it is for the school district. And just as everyone in the school district is just working at this pace to ensure that learning continues in whatever means possible. For Vegas PBS, that's the airwaves as well as the internet. So we're utilizing both pathways to ensure that continuity of learning continues at home in whatever way we can.
Thank you. Actually, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to pivot to Superintendent Yarrow to talk a little bit about some of the changes that you've experienced and had to make since what I can only imagine very stressful time coping with some of the changes due to COVID.
Yeah, so well, thank you. And let me just thank Nikki for her comments. I think they were critical in her partnership, but I know that Vegas PBS, you know, came in and jumped in, has done phenomenal work and really about advocating and not only, but then putting our lessons together and it's beautiful. Some of the work our teachers have been doing and sharing. So kudos to the partnership there, but also, you know, and I think Cody mentioned, you know, really I like the comments about the community, because that's what, when we shut down, we originally went from a crisis, right? Crisis shutdown, not knowing what the impact of COVID, and the more we know, the more information that we have now. But, you know, March 16th, you know, I still remember at about 1 o'clock, when we were trying to work with the state superintendent and all superintendents about making a decision about statewide. This community has come together on behalf of our kids, which is beautiful to see. And with the state board and the state superintendent and the leadership at the state level to kind of work with us and the governor's task force to create Connecting Kids, which then you had the government agencies, and then you then kind of came in and with the business partners, because it had a little bit of extra resources in the municipalities really around. We went from crisis to then connecting our kids to devices, to technology, to internet, to really make sure that the continuity of learning maintained. And then through the summer, you know, it's kind of been processing in my mind how, when is this going to stop? We don't know. So now we look at how do we then continue to improve and provide a systematic approach for our educators who have been working tirelessly. It's not just any, you know, the community, but our teachers, our administrators, really trying to provide an education that, you know, as a country in the world, not how do you flip, right? And this is how do we flip, and we flip the fifth largest district in the country upside down, right? It kind of just flipped on its head, and doing the best we can for everybody to make sure that our kids, you know, continue to learn. So we're still learning. We learn every day from the field, and now we're moving is how do we continue to put systems in place for our educators to be able to provide a consistent education and equitable for every single child. That's been the biggest challenge, is how do we systemize something that's so decentralized? You know, when we look at what we have and what we need, so every single child has access to high quality instruction. We're struggling, I'll be honest, but it's something that we are committed to providing for all our students.
And then Ms. Lewis had mentioned some of the adaptations you've needed to make in terms of supporting the community since COVID. Would you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. You know, it was just unprecedented. I think what we all went through, and a couple of us alluded to the pace in which we had to work. You know, we are still reeling from that. I mean, I think we're still out of breath. I think our stamina is obviously a lot higher than what it used to be. So when we were very winded in the beginning, you know, we definitely have learned how to navigate the marathon that we're on right now. One of the things that we experienced, obviously for MGM, it was unprecedented. We had to shut down all of our properties. I think most of them didn't even have locks on the doors. So just trying to understand and wrap our heads around how do you operate, you know, at a capacity where, you know, most of, you know, the staff unfortunately had been furloughed due to business operations. And then how do you maintain the viability and the pace at which the work had to shift and still be done, you know, with a third of the workforce that are in place. And one of the things that we wanted to do, quite honestly, and you know, I was one of the ones that was impacted during that time. I fortunately was one of the ones that was called back, honestly, and I'm here. But one of the things that we wanted to do was just to, you know, touch bases with our employees and see how they were doing. We talked about the pace and what can we do to help. And one of the number one concerns, we sent out an employee survey to all of our existing employees, and I included our regional properties as well, and asked them some pivotal questions about what we can do to support them through this crisis. And one of the main things or themes that came out of that survey was, you know, how do I operate and be productive and contribute to MGM and also homeschool my children? I don't have the resources. I'm trying to understand where they are from a lesson planning standpoint. I'm trying to understand how to help them keep pace and help them to keep engaged. So I had come back to the company at that time, and they know I create college programs and I create program across the organization, and say, you know, what can we do? I don't really know where to go with this right now. Is it an internship? Is it a class? What does it look like? So I knew I had some great contacts over at UNLV. And I said, well, you know what, let's strategize. And so we came up with the Educational Resource Program, which is a exclusive partnership between UNLV College of Education and also MGM Resource to provide free tutoring services for MGM employees, their children. And so we facilitate on a weekly basis an average of 7 to 10 small group tutoring sessions from grades 3 all the way up to 12. This was, I call it my triple threat or triple win for the organization. It helps the employees have some type of ease, that they have some resources to be able to go to with challenges that they're having from just the regular day-to-day rigor of school. Also, as you can imagine, these students in the College of Education, they need those in-classroom credits most times in order to be able to graduate. And now there was no in-classroom sessions. So this was a solution for that as well. And then obviously it was also, you know, the number one and primary reason why we did this was to foster the continued learning and giving them access to high quality teachers at a higher education university, which is UNLV, the most diverse university in the country. So it was definitely a win all the way around. We're able to, you know, provide this on a free basis for our employees, continue to expand our partnership with UNLV, provide a way for the UNLV College of Education students to receive credit in that in classroom or virtual training, and then impact the lives of, you know, the students so that they continue to be engaged and prepared. So we're just really super excited about this. It is a pilot. I think I heard Dr. Jara talk about, you know, we're still learning, it's not perfect, and it hasn't been. We had some technology challenges in the beginning. You know, we're trying to make sure that individuals are engaged. We're trying to make sure we have the right mix of, you know, tutors to students. But overall, it is a resource that the employees are extremely glad to be a part of or be able to take advantage of. I'm very happy to have been a part in setting this all up and spearheading that, and being able to provide the College of Education, the students their resources to be able to continue in this type of environment and continue to expand our partnership with a credible higher education institution like UNLV and impact the Las Vegas community.
And then Mr. Sims, any additional thoughts about some changes due to COVID and supporting community and schools?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, when when you take the 5th largest school district in the nation and then say, hey, we're going to do distance learning, that has a lot of implications when it comes to connectivity. And Cox was one of the companies here in the Valley who was best positioned to really help bridge that digital divide for especially low-income families. As you know, low-income families, that's going to be the highest risk for kids not being able to have access to their classroom. And so with working with the governor's task force, who had some CARES Act funding that they would like to apply and help out with it, and working with the Elaine Wynn Foundation. If you know Poonam Manthar over there, she's fantastic. And then of course, Community in Schools, Tammy Hance there is just a rock star. So those combinations of minds coming together with us at Cox and the great team that Dr. Jara has assembled on his team, we sat down and said, okay, we've got some big hurdles we got to overcome here. Things like privacy law, things like content filtering that's required for students who are accessing online content. So we really worked hard together, and I love that both Dr. Bates and Kanita used the ideas around, I'm holding my breath, I'm running out of breath. I think on my side, I think I was hyperventilating. We worked really hard together to come through and figure out ways to get through this, which included, we found a way that we could make it so that families who had less than $500 of past due balance with Cox could sign back up for Connect to Compete service. So we basically said, you know what, we understand you're in a financial spot. We're going to look past that $500 so that you can sign up again for Connect to Compete. We gave 2 months of free service so that we could get through all of the billing structure we had to put in place. And then we were able to set up a scenario where the CARES Act funding could be applied as a credit to those families' accounts without Cox having any profit at all from that. It's straight pass through to those families. And we felt like that was our honor and our obligation to help with getting those families connected. And then the CCSD team, they put together, working with Community in Schools, a family support center where families could call in and say, hey, I need help. I don't know how to connect. I don't know how to get a device. Those family support center reps could act on behalf of Cox and actually sign them up for service with them on the phone. So they didn't have to do the runaround, the calling over to Cox and calling the school and calling, not sure who to do what with. So that really helped to narrow the gap of making it really easy for these families to get connected. So I'm really happy to report that we have over 5,000 families now that have signed up and connected. They have internet connectivity, high-speed connectivity at their home. And we would not have been able to do that without the partnership and that really great coming together of all these community partners.
Thank you so much. I mean, as a faculty member at UNLV, Cody, I was also really touched to see emails going out across our university-wide listserv about students having access to the Cox Cares, discounted internet access, which is just really important. And I think really important and novel in the higher ed landscape as well. Cody, you also touched on how your organization has thought about equity, and the topic for the theme for the summit is equity. And so the question for the panelists is, how have you and your organization thought about and addressed educational equity in your work?
Well, I'll just follow up with that, Dr. No, that, yeah, absolutely. At Cox, we recognize that not everyone can afford the gigablast internet speeds, right? But high-speed internet is that it's becoming one of those basic needs that families will put as a priority over other things that are part of their budget. And so the Connect to Compete program is set at a very, very low price point to try to help those families overcome that hurdle. And with the CARES Act funding, it actually eliminates that hurdle altogether, which is fantastic. And to your point, also with a UNLV, with the College of Southern Nevada, with other municipalities, we're continuing to explore ways that we can help provide internet access as a basic need to help just get to school. It's almost like, hey, in order for me to even put my foot on the bus, I have to be able to have internet access. So yes, we have a program working with UNLV to help those students who are struggling. Maybe they live in a place where they don't have internet access. They can't go back onto college campus to get access. So we've also provided a low income status option as well for those students. So we love that we have so many community partners who have great ideas and who are willing to lean in with us to figure out how to solve.
Dr. Bates?
Cody, I'm absolutely inspired by what Cox is doing to help our kids connect. That is absolutely amazing. And what that is doing is ensuring that when we talk about equity, we're talking about an achievement gap, right? Those populations that you are ensuring have access to internet are just the populations that we need to ensure have what they need to minimize that gap. And that's what equity is all about. I've talked about our Ready to Learn program where we are in Title I schools, Zoom schools. Those are schools and areas of our community that are considered at risk and high need areas. So, we're providing services, direct services now virtually to those populations, and your connectivity that you've provided to those populations is helping us to do that, most certainly. So, again, it's about that achievement gap and doing everything that we can do to ensure our families have what they need and have that access in order to minimize that achievement gap. So that, again, I would applaud Cox Cable for ensuring that the services that even we provide, that the district provides, are able to reach those families in need. Thank you for that.
Any other thoughts to add about equity from your organization's perspective?
Yeah, just, really quickly, our workforce, probably over 60% of the population are salaried employees. Even a high percentage within that 60%, are some of our hourly workers and frontline workers that, guest servants, attendants, housekeepers. Some of them do not have their jobs don't afford them to have, the same type of access to email and some of the other communications that we have throughout system-wide. So when we build programs like this, we make an extra effort as it relates to communication and marketing, and even just face-to-face group team meetings to make sure that these free programs are the programs that would benefit that population the most. They know about them. If they don't hear about them, they can't take advantage of them, and then they can't actually make the impact in the community that we want them to make long-term. It defeats the purpose. So we make sure that the marketing and the communications are very strategic. We make sure that they're balanced, equity in some of the programs that we have, and then the partnerships that we have externally, like with SIA. They do an amazing job in helping us to find classes and courses that are affordable and building programs and leveraging some of the internal opportunities that we have. Empower America, we work with them, as well. There are so many partners across the board that are very deeply committed to the employee population that sometimes are at a slightly disadvantage from some other employee populations, to make sure that they have the resources that they need. And we partner with them on a consistent basis to ensure that our employees have access to that.
So just one quick question in terms of access. Superintendent Yara, it's great work on the new school sites. Will middle and high school students at all schools have learning experiences to explore careers before deciding where to focus, or how will they engage with that?
Yeah, I saw that. So thank you for bringing that up, Patricia. One of the things that we're looking at, obviously that's for high schools, the new schools, and looking some of the work and how do we provide that access in the curriculum. And I'll go back to say pre-COVID, we were in a pilot working with the county commissioner and Kirkpatrick and the thriving communities of work that was started before COVID hit us all in March or February, around providing pilots, and we had selected 8 middle schools. So we're now slowly trying to bring that back, and then so we can grow. That was part of our efforts, bringing in the labor partners to come in and help us in that. providing access to our kids. So something that we'll have to come back and bring that back here in Clark County.
Great. And so the last question that we have is kind of what should partnerships, businesses, nonprofits, and the education sector look like? I think we've had kind of a lot of growing that we've had to do over the last year to really think about what are what do you envision the future looking like for these partnerships?
I'll start. We've heard already about the wonderful things that are happening through these partnerships. MGM, Cox, our partnership with the school district. There is so much more that can happen. And I think given this time of need, those partnerships are exponentially more important than ever before. One of the ways is nonprofits. We are a nonprofit through our Southern Nevada Public Television Board 501c3, right? Utilizing the power of that as a fiscal agent. When we partner and apply for grants together, it is a powerful thing. And who does it serve? It may not, we heard Dr. McCormick Lee talk about different revenue streams for school districts, right? The Clark County School District is a major employer in this state. They serve the needs of well over 300,000 students and families. If by partnering with them, by utilizing the fiscal agency resources that our nonprofits in our community have, to go after funds, to apply for funds, to work together, to work with the grants departments within those school districts, to work with the research and accountability departments within those school districts, to be able to have those lines of communication completely open can only expand the pots of money that may be available to go after to help our students. Instead of solely relying on tax funds, instead of solely relying on those funds that we heard Senator Dennis, that we heard Senator Bach and Dr. Lee talk about, we can expand those services if we think a little bit outside the box. And of course, student confidentiality issues are huge, but more and more funders are requiring information about impact of those dollars in the community, which we need those lines of communication to be able to get that data for. Many of the grants that we go after as a 501c3 require reporting and demands on needs assessment. They want proof of why you need the funds. They also want proof of performance. That requires a lot of communication between various departments within our educational entities, working with the business community. Our business foundations, our corporate foundations want that information as well, especially now when dollars are tight. That type of accountability is even more important. So moving forward and opening up those lines of communications between the nonprofit worlds, between our our corporations, as well as our school district entities, I think can lead to only success and serve the needs of the population that we all serve, that we all is in our common interest to ensure they succeed.
So we have about 30 seconds left. Are there any other comments in terms of future directions?
If I could just on the last 30 seconds echo Nikki's comments, ask and align it to our strategic goals and our efforts as a school system, and then provide the support there. Here's an example of one. There's many others that we are partnering. Just ask us, and then we'll help you guide in that direction. We can't rely on all tax and the state dollars at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you all so much for your time today. Again, if you have any additional questions for any of our speakers, please feel up to them and their respective organizations directly. I believe we took care of the questions we saw in the box, so thank you very much for your time.
Leverett and myself to sort of reflect on what we heard during the first two sessions. Yeah, I think that the very last point that Dr. Nikki Bates made was really important about collaborating across sectors to to secure additional funding and resources for these equity issues that we see in our community. And as a researcher, I'm constantly also writing grants all the time, and there is a lot of funding out there that is targeted towards strengthening these types of partnerships. So I think we need to put all our heads together to think about the different partnerships that can be built and expanded to secure additional resources and develop programs and interventions to help students. I think what I was struck by during the conversation was that, yeah, sometimes when we only have a limited view of our organization, we don't see and we can't fully address the needs of the communities that we're serving. And so, a partnership with Cox and a partnership with Vegas PBS like really helps to illuminate and expand the potential. The other point,
Sure.
the other point that I think was really neat to hear about was supporting parents in parent engagement. So we heard that from MGM, we heard that from Vegas PBS, and also Cox, and supporting parents in this way and guardians in their trying to support their students. It's much more of a holistic, comprehensive approach than just targeting students themselves.
The other piece that I thought connected kind of between the first two sessions is there was a moment where Dr. McCormick-Lee said, we don't be kind of constrained to what a grant says. We really want to think about what are the needs of the individual schools, the community members. We want to come at it from kind of need and address that directly, right? And so as we're thinking about equity, we need to sit down with our school communities and say, okay, what do we need? How do we begin to address kind of where you want us to start and build from there? And I think many of the participants today talked about reaching out to community member feedback about kind of what is it that you'd like to see, and really targeting based on the feedback that they're getting, as opposed to pushing in maybe unnecessary or pieces that weren't really meeting community needs. So it was really nice to see how those pieces were aligned with the voice of community members.
Yeah, and most definitely, I was thinking about how, obviously we just have 3 panelists from 3 organizations that are very prominent in Nevada here, but obviously there's dozens, if not hundreds, of other partnerships that exist and are doing wonderful work in the community. It did make me wonder if there's someone or some organization that's not here that we could really explore additional expanding partnerships with to increase educational equity.
Yeah, I think that might be a good thing to add into our Q&A box. So if you know of any additional community partners that we should think about in these conversations, feel free to put them in the box, and so we can make sure to broaden this discussion in the future.
Well, Dr. Leverett, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for being a wonderful partner discussing on this. Thank you all for attending this session, and we will please stay on for the very next sessions.